Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to be doing the backlist tag. This tag was created by Paula of Draw Your Books, and I will have a link to her original channel or original video in the show notes down below. Question number 1. Do you read backlisted books? Why? Yes, I do. Why? Because partially they are new to me, but also it takes time to get around to all of the books you want to read. So you might originally intend to pick up a book that is a new release, and by the time you get to it, it will match some form of a definition for a backlisted book. Question number 2. What is your definition of a backlisted book? So I've been running through options for a definition since I've seen this tag. One definition option I could go with is a book that has been released for a number of months. So it's like X number of months after release date. Another option is a book that has been released in a trade paperback, if it was a hardcover or a mass market, depending on the sort of publication life of the specific book. I mean, some books only get one release form, and others get multiple. And some get hardcover, and then trade paperback, and then mass market, and those are usually science fiction and fantasy, and I'm assuming also probably other genre fiction, although mostly science fiction and fantasy. Another option is when the next book by the specific author comes out, which would push the present book into no longer being a new release because it's not the present book, it's the last book. I kind of play with all of them. Part of me would see a backlisted book as being one that's a few months past publication, but also I think the transition to a trade paperback, or even from the current book to immediate past book, as being backlisting as well. It's confusing, I know. Question number 3. Name a backlisted novel you love. For this one, I'm going to go with City of Lost Fortunes by Bryan. I've recently done my 3rd rereading of the novel and loved it as much as I've loved it the past 2 times I've read it. It's a contemporary fantasy set in Katrina 5 years after... Set in New Orleans 5 years after Katrina. I'm sorry about that. It's a story of a demigod sorcerer named Jude Dubuisson, who has, in the aftermath of Katrina, absented himself from the magical community of New Orleans, who finds himself drawn back into the magical community in order to save New Orleans from, well, he initially gets drawn back in to clear a debt to the present fortune god, but at a poker game of gods, in the aftermath, the fortune god is murdered, and Jude has to figure out who did it. And in figuring out who did it, he has to save New Orleans from a fate far worse than death. It's an amazing novel. I've loved it every time I've read it. Question number 5. Name a backlisted No. Question number 4. I am off my game today. I'm sorry. Question number 4. Name a backlisted nonfiction book you love. For this, I'm going to go with I could go with These Truths by Joe Lepore. These Truths is a large history of the United States, and I love it. It is an amazing book. So I highly, highly recommend it if you're in the market for American history. Definitely, These Truths is a book to have. Finally, question number 5. Name a backlisted translated book you love. A Tombstone by Jisheng. It is a history of the Great Chinese Famine from 1958 to 62, and it is an amazing book. I also highly recommend Yang Jisheng's more recent, even though this isn't backlisted in translation, his World Turned Upside Down, a history of the Chinese Cultural Revolution is also really good. Question number 6. Name an author you have read all the backlist from. Oh, I don't think I have one. Honestly. Because I haven't really read any author like their entire body of work. Any that I can, none are coming to mind. I mean, like Hollinghurst, I've read everything but the novel before the Sparsholt affair, which I think is Stranger's Child. Like, I haven't gotten to that one yet. I don't think there are any authors that I've read their entire body of work, except for, like, say, Katie Edwards or Bryan Camp, and that's only and Nicholas Eames, and that's only because they've only written 2 books, and I'm breathlessly awaiting their new releases. So I don't think there's, like, except for authors that have only a very few number of books, I don't think I've read anybody's entire body of work. Prompt number 7, or question number 7. Name an author you want to read all of the backlist from. Well, Alan Hollinghurst, I'd love to read all of his work. I would also love to read all of Elliott de Bodard. So, N.K. Jemisin, I would love to read everything by her, although I have struggled with her work until relatively recently, and I'm not entirely sure if going back I'm going to continue to struggle. Also, Catherine and Valenti, I wanted to read all of her work for ages. Kenneth Lee, Joe Lepore, I would love to read everything by her. A whole lot of authors. Honestly, I would love to read their entire body of work. And finally, question number 8. Name a backlisted book that you think will become a classic. I don't know. Because, like, the thing with, like, say, science fiction and fantasy, which a lot of the backlisted authors, a lot of, like, the backlisted novel I love are science fiction works. And I'm not entirely sure, like, them becoming classics. That's a whole lot rarer. I guess maybe. Oh, I haven't read. Oh, I don't know. I would like to see, I think, Tombstone become a classic. And the Swimming Pool Library, maybe. But I'm not as certain on like a book I think will stand the test of time. So anyway, that was the backlist tag. I will be back tomorrow with the P tag. And then there are a few other tags that I might be doing Wednesday and Thursday. We'll see. And then, of course, on Friday, I will be doing weekly reads, which, yeah, so far my reading week has not been all that pleasant. Hopefully, what I will be reading during the work week will kind of turn things around, but we shall see. So, a new booktube. Until tomorrow, thank you, have a great afternoon, and please stay safe.